First thing we have to do is we have to cut the access holes for the stem of the wine glass. And that's just going to be a 1/2 inch wide. So we're going to measure a 1/4 inch to either side of the center line that's still there. And then I'm just going to cut these out in the bandsaw. One other thing I need to do is just to even up the edges where I jigsawed between the holes for the handle. And I'm just going to smooth that out using a razor. It just makes the transition a little smoother. Alright, so I've set up my router with a 1/4 inch radius round over bit. And I want to radius both sides to give the table a nice finished edge. So I'm going to start along the outside of the table. To do the inside of the handle, you want to start with the bit off and away from the edges, and then run just around the inside. Turn it off and wait for the router to stop before you pull it out. Flip it over and do the same thing on the top side. Okay, now that it's apart, we can fix the little bit of difference in the height. I've pinned these guys together with their dowel, and you can see, I'm hoping you can see, that one of them is slightly longer than the other. These should be exactly the same length. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a line and I'm going to sand to that line. That'll make it a little better. For the other guys, what I did is I put carriage bolt through, and I can see that they are almost perfect. But again, a little bit of sanding to touch that up should make this table sit perfectly level. All right, I've laid out all the parts for sanding. We're going to sand it to, we're going to start with probably 120, because this isn't too bad. Start with 120 grit, go to 180 grit, and then 220 to finish. And then we're going to break the edges, any square edges on any of the pieces we want to break with 220, just so that the finish doesn't crack in the corner. And then it'll be ready. We are going to partially assemble it before we finish it, and I'll be back when we're ready to partially finish it. Okay, what I've done now, it's all sanded to 220. I have temporarily screwed these pieces back into place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put painter's tape around them, because I've got to glue these up before we put the finish on. And if any glue escapes, I don't want it to get on the wood. It'll be tough to sand when everything's attached. All right. I've also had to do the cross pieces on the legs. It's going to make it interesting when we go to assemble this thing. Alright, so now I'll just take these apart and we'll get ready to glue. Okay, we're ready to actually start putting glue on. So what I've done is I've put the screws in. We're going to line it up with the holes when we stand it up, but we're going to apply glue to the bottom of the piece. I'm using Titebond 3, which is a good, it's actually waterproof. You can use it outdoors. But if you're going to have one glue, it's a good one to have because it has longer working time than the standard Titebond. If you glue it properly, the glue joint is actually stronger than the wood itself. Make sure you get enough on there too. Alright, so we're going to line up the screws. Drop these down and screw it in place. Alright, so we got our plug cutter in the drill press, and we've got a piece of scrap wood, and we need 8 plugs. I usually try to make a couple extra if I can. Okay, so all we have to do to get these plugs out is just take a screwdriver and they pop right out. So what we need to do is we're going to plug these are tapered. So they're going to go in from the top side down, and they will fill the hole. So you just got to put a little bit of glue, and you try to line up the grain of the wood as best you can so that the plug doesn't show. Tap it in with a mallet. Okay, I've let the plugs dry overnight, and now I'm going to cut them with a flush cutting saw. A flush cutting saw has no tooth set on one side, and you can tell by feeling it. There's almost no set on the teeth on this side, which means it shouldn't scratch the wood too badly, but we're going to sand it off afterwards anyway. What a lot of people do is they'll leave a spacer and then they'll sand the difference. So what I'm going to use is a playing card. I always keep a deck of playing cards in my shop. They work good as shims. I'm going to set the playing card next to the piece. Take the saw, cut off the plugs. Now we're going to start with 80 grit sandpaper to bring those down flush. As you can see now, we have got our plugs in place. Okay, to prepare for finish, you got to take that painter's tape off. Alright, we're ready to apply finish. And one thing I did is I used a couple of test pieces. Got these guys, and I tried a couple different things. And I tried amber shellac, which was going to be an undercoat to kind of bring out the grain, but I found I didn't need it. So we're just going to go with General Finishes Armor Seal, which is becoming my favorite oil finish to put on other types of wood. My favorite finish for cherry is Waterlox. What I did is I wiped down all the pieces with mineral spirits to get the dust off. You could use a tack cloth. I don't like tack cloths because I think they leave a residue behind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a coat of General Finishes, and eventually we'll put 3 coats on. We'll flip everything over and do the other side. So it's going to take a couple days to get this all done. I did stir it up. You don't want to create a lot of bubbles. I'm just using an old sock to apply the finish. This wood is very, very dry, and it's going to definitely, the first coat is definitely going to soak up. So apply it liberally. Alright, I'm going to move forward and do the legs, and we'll catch you once the finishing is done. And here it is, all complete. Whenever the wine places open up, we'll be out tasting.